Welcome to our Chixxs on Board podcast. We're excited to introduce you to many different personalities with their stories and passions, in a real and honest way, from women to women, with the clear focus to our passion of surf, skate and snowboarding. In our today's podcast, we talk food. What a huge topic combined with so many emotions. In combination with our planet, Coos has this vision to represent their work as food activists, showing that food waste and proper, thoughtful nutrition is not only healthy for yourself, but it is healthy for our planet. So let's dig in with Tora and Maéva and get to know those small but big differences we all can make in our daily lives. Welcome to our podcast. We're gonna talk about pretty much everything around food today, especially because we thought it's extremely important because we're all using our earth a lot and food has a huge impact to all of that. So I thought it's really interesting to actually find out with the two of you to maybe get a bit better in our daily habits or having a bigger view on that topic. So I'd love to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you. We're really happy to be here today.
We're talking today as three women. So we have you, Tora, and you, Maéva, right?
Yes.
And we can find more about you with the title Coos. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Should we maybe start with the title? Maybe you could explain a bit more about how that name came together.
Yeah, well, actually it's more like of an inside joke between the two of us because we've known each other for as long as we can remember. We grew up together and we always kind of had projects going on and everything. And so COS is basically the acronym for chocolate out of shit, which comes from actually Maéva's mom, who said in French, oui, mais on peut faire du chocolat avec de la merde, en gros. And then that kind of stuck with us because it's kind of part of our philosophy, which is you can always do something good out of anything bad. So it's a less cheesy way of saying you're looking on the bright side of life. Mm-hmm. And then we were like, oh, that's how it all kind of started. So first the Instagram account where it all started was called Chocolate Out of Shit, but then we needed to clean it up a little bit, so then it became cos.ch.
Yeah, it was really coming out also after doing many recipes and posts on Instagram that we're really using what was left over in the fridge and then managed to do really delicious, not just churros flowers, but really delicious and nice dishes out of a old potato and a few spices. So that's the story behind COS.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to explain more about the different aspect of COS and how the different.
Well, so it started as just a basic Instagram account, as Maéva said. We did it along with the studies. We just basically were being witty and posting nice looking recipes on Instagram. And then it's kind of developed because we felt like everything that has to do with sustainability or healthy food was either a bit like pointy fingers, so either you were a hardcore vegan and then nothing else was okay, or if you were talking more about sustainability, it was very much like everything that was connected to zero waste. Well, that's generalizing a lot, but was more like super beige and didn't have there was nothing that we could really connect to. And we also felt like in terms of food that healthy food doesn't necessarily mean that you have to eat like tropical smoothies or just a couple of grains in your it can still be foodie and colorful. So that's where we were like, oh, there's a place to take here somewhere and to make it also more approachable for everyone, not only like women or it can be for eating good food can be for everybody. In order to be that, it needs to be a little bit more easy and fun. So then we started doing that, and then we ended up doing a lot of events and catering and that kind of stuff because that was the most concrete tool we had to be able to bring more planetary, planetary friendly food to the people. But then we ended up spending a lot of time in the kitchen and not actually going through to people, so it was a bit painful sometimes when you've been cooking for like 12 hours and then someone's come like, oh, where are the muffins? And you're like, well, there are no muffins. So then like the whole kind of reflection that we had all the time is to really to come through with a lot of impact, and then we felt, even though like the food obviously is the connection point, but just serving the food got it a little bit limiting for us, and especially since we wanted more than just doing that. So now it has more developed into a consulting agency, or a change agency as we call it, which is acting as the extended hand and brains of leaders who want to implement food systems change. So that is through our the project Devore that we can talk about a little bit more after, that took kind of it took shape in a way. But then there's also like the community, like the Instagram account that has grown a bit. It's not huge, but the audience is super engaged as well, so it's small and mighty. To have this connection and to be able to give these easy at hand recipes that are fun, that are which is the core of it all, which is basically what you said before, Maéva, doing like really nice food with super simple ingredients, that you can spell all the ingredients, you know where to find them, and that it's super like easy. And that's where we also kind of continue to do some events, because it's the connection between the two of them that makes it like more as an entity that can have impact. I don't know if you want to add something to that.
You're great.
That all sounds really interesting. I think it's a huge topic, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like we're talking about food, we're talking about our favorite food. It's like a huge topic, and I hope we can get everything a little packed in here. Maybe to start a bit more personal, like what does food personally means, or like what's the feeling when you talk or hear about food for you in person, not for you as a company, just like for you in person?
As for me, I always been fascinated with food. I actually started with a bakery, CFC. I don't know how you call that, an internship, basically for 3 years. So I was baking, apprenticeship, baking for 3 years and cooking chocolates. And I was fascinated with the connection that people had with food, and all the joy that came with it, or no joy, or this connection, or the culture that is behind it, the tradition, and so on. So after this, I decided to study nutrition to really understand what are the chemicals, pathway, and what's going on in our body, and that felt really like more like the most logical thing to do, because it's life. You get to understand who you are, how you behave with the food as well. If you can control what you want to eat, you also can control other aspects in your life. So there's, like you say, many different layers of I don't know, connection to the food. And for me, it's just like to connect to people, to connect to yourself, and even if you don't speak the same language, you can speak food.
Yeah. For me, it's a bit more like food hasn't been always so simple in my life, you can say. I mean, I've always, like when I was little, it was natural or whatever, but then my mom is a great chef, so she's always eating really well at home, but then when I was like a teenager, it got quite complicated, and I restricted a lot and doing that kind of stuff. So actually going back to a plant-based diet and all those things was a way for me to kind of allow myself to eat more. And then it became like doing that, and then doing it together with Maéva, like it brought back the joy of food, basically. So now it's basically a therapeutic way as well, to make it just as simple and joyful, because food is supposed to be joyful. It's not a way to punish yourself or anything else. It's just the fuel of life. So it's really, now it's something that is super like connected, and as Maéva said as well, like it's a tool for so many things, like to connect to people. Is it like the food language, or to connect in general, or with yourself, because we all kind of, we talk a lot about intuitive eating and that kind of stuff. Like basically we know what's good for us. It's just that we're kind of disconnected to it.
Disconnected to nature as well. We just really get to know where our food is being grown, etc. So yeah, it's a great tool.
Yeah, and that is a huge problem as well, I think, sometimes, because I think there are many people out there, maybe as well as some of them who are actually listening right now, that they just use food to get their bellies full, and they maybe think about it like, what am I gonna eat tonight, or what am I gonna eat tomorrow, but they're probably not really thinking about like, what impact do I have, or what's gonna happen with my body, or there's like a huge, I would say, a huge circle around that decisions. And why do you girls think that there's still such an ignorance sometimes? Like, it's not just an ignorance, but I think why does people still don't get that close into that topics? Because they eat it, it's like their own body.
The connection to our food has been really intensively thrown apart in those last few years or decades. Because we started trusting the different companies, and they have a lot of ways of doing the marketing around food. We have craftsmanship washing, and then greenwashing, and all of that is it's difficult to get a difference between what actually is food in terms of nutritious aspect. Is it that food that is alive, or is it the food that has been highly processed? All these things disconnect us fundamentally to what food is, and actually how much energy it takes and resources it takes to grow that food. And we have taken that for granted, to have all the shelves and the shop and the food shop full all the time, access to food. It's not the case everywhere in the world, but since it's so easy for us in Switzerland to get to that, sometimes it's just like we don't even ask ourselves the question.
We just take it for granted that there will be food around. But I mean, we can see that as well with like what happened around COVID as well, when everything stopped. How much like where there are these societal norms, and about like that we always go for what's like efficient and all of those things, and that in this, and that's also like the whole being efficient and like always that you can get it whenever you want, that has broken a little bit like the purpose of food. So that's like society that pushes us to go so fast, that disconnects the whole thing from the food. And then it's also like all about how we should look or whatever, and that there's so many things about like, this, you should eat this to get skinny, or you should eat this to look a certain way. And then you're like consuming food or eating food just for the looking aspect of it, instead of how we feel. So that's probably that also as well, that I mean, we can blame society in a way for disconnecting us. Because also before, when you were laboring the land yourself and you're doing all of those things yourselves, you were connected to, and you knew that, okay, this grows at this time, or this is the amount of effort that goes into it. But now we're just going down to the supermarket and we're like,
the sense of respect to the food has been also, is not as, like you said, is not like it used to be. Because if you start growing your own vegetable, you know how painful it could be sometimes to just like, zucchini, please grow faster. You're like, it's been like months, come on. And then when you finally get some, it's just like, it's rewarding, but we don't really, as a a society, but as we want to work and then go on, it's just like not possible to grow our food. And then if we have the opportunity to do so, or just at least be connected to some local markets and stuff like this, it gets easier, and then it feels more natural, like you said, like to know what's in season, etc., etc. But it's not always easy.
So what's the most important thing that should change in your eyes in that?
Well, first, I mean, as for so many other things, it's really to become more conscious and educate yourself about what it means to, like, what's local around you, how do you get it, and maybe like when you go to the grocery store or you pick up something and you're like, okay, what's inside of this, what, like, how does it situate itself in the whole entity of it all. So it's just like picking up a thing and then putting it in and just eating it without being conscious about it. That would probably like be the first step to do it. But then like you can never learn enough about it. It can also be overwhelming, but then to just, I don't know. It's really about like first becoming conscious, and then you can make better choices in a way, and also be a little bit more like not being just fed information, just like fact check it, or ask yourself, is this really like is it supposed to be like this, or am I okay with this, or whatever. But then like more technical stuff, it would be to definitely go away from the bigger supermarkets and like go to your local farmers or the smaller things and look for things that are in season, that are as local as possible, and if you can get it organic, and I mean that's super great as well. And then the less packaging possible, because it's just a disaster.
Because if you dig into the information, obviously it's going to get overwhelming, because you have transport, water resources, land use, chemicals, and blah blah blah, and then it's an endless story.
And to be honest, it's super hard to get the information, because there's not so much labeling in terms of environmental impact. On like it's moving more towards that, but it's super hard to find that information. But if you can simplify it into those staples, then...
But it like you said, it's a great solution to just go to the local market, so you don't have to ask any more questions. It's just that's what we have now where I live. That's what my farmer next door has been growing. So it's just basically you don't really need to ask yourself that many questions about where it comes from, processed or not, etc., etc. But
and then there's of course like always a little bit elephant in the room question about the meat, which is like, of course, like the single one thing you can do to like improve your environmental impact in terms of taking it away is taking away the meat. But then it doesn't necessarily make sense if you do that, but then go buy a whole lot of like processed foods and just buy tropical things that come from the other side of the world or whatever, because that's not necessarily going to make you more healthy, even though it's more sustainable on the paper. But if you are like getting meat from your local farmer, where you basically have seen the cow grow up or whatever, and you know that they've been brought up in a good environment, then it's just about being conscious about your meat consumption, and that you don't actually need to eat it every day, but when you do, then that you choose very wisely. So it comes back to the consciousness again.
And you can appreciate it again as well in that way.
So, but with Coos, you actually started to do those recipes with all the leftovers you have in your fridge. So that's a starting point as well, right? To just use everything. And how did that grow in such... I mean, when I make some research about you, the two of you, it's like such a huge thing that you created. It's not just doing some recipes out of a fridge. It's the message with it. How did everything started? How did that grow? out of some recipes. Of course, you had the emotions involved and everything, but yeah, how did that grow into now a company of 3 women? Are you now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, like when we started seeing that there was like when we started posting more regularly, and we got like we knew somewhere from the start, like from that we were onto something, because we had this like we've been like it hasn't come like for free, because we knew from the beginning that we had pretty like we knew what kind of universe we wanted to create in a way, and the fact that we've been super coherent with that is probably one of the reasons that it's been working a lot, and that we've also kind of always kept this aspect of keeping it personal and connecting it really to, so that worked. But when we started kind of posting more regularly, then all of a sudden we got like asked to do collaborations for events and catering and that kind of stuff, and then we were like, well, we don't really have a product or anything to sell, so we might as well just do that. And then it escalated quite quickly. So we started from like the first brunch that we did was for like 30 people or something like that, and then we ended up cooking for 550 people over 3 days, and that was like a marathon. It was insane. But we managed it so well. Like it's like we don't want to, like we always say that we throw flowers on each other, but at that point like we just really managed it because we could really walk our talk. Like we are lucky because we have super good we have good connections in Valais, so we have super good suppliers that basically incarnate everything that we stand for, so we have really good connection with that. But we could manage to do those recipes and like just cook all of it, and then at the end there was nothing left, and we were like, oh, we managed. We didn't like, we have never cooked for that many people as well. Like Maéva has the CFC as a pastry chef and everything, like but I have no like real background in cooking or whatever, so it was really we managed it. But after like last summer we did 2 to 3 events per month, and it was super intense.
Yeah, it was intense.
So we were pretty exhausted at the end of the summer, and also there was always this little kind of tension between, of course, like it's super tangible, we can get the like the food to the people, but it's also getting us away from what we really want to do, which is, or that it was limited in terms of impact of how we want to help to change the food system and like push others to do what we do into their organizations. So it's
you even call yourself some. I wrote it on your, I think it's the Instagram account, right?
Yeah.
Where you call yourself Swiss food activists.
Yeah.
So that's like your motivation as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's not about just doing good looking food and being funny on Instagram. Like there is like a real mission behind it and a real value behind it, and the idea of it is to be able to create a movement with other people. It's just not gonna be just the two of us cooking and being like, oh, this is fun, you know. It's really about getting people engaged in it, like in the cause of connecting it, because food, not everyone is aware of the impact that food has. Is it a quarter? Yeah, a quarter of global food, carbon emissions is from the food industry.
Yeah. And in Switzerland, it's just food has more impact on the environment than housing and transportation. So it's quite.
How did that get together? Like, what do you think is the impact? What's the problem of our society that we have such a huge impact on food?
Just we're trying to facilitate access to food as much as we could, so it's get easier to get food, and so you could work, and also aware of creating an economic environment where people have time to be dedicated to their work, and then reduce the amount of time you're doing the dishes and etc. So we went down the line of processed food quite a lot, and then for that it obviously involves monoculture exploitation, a lot of chemicals, so you need to grow the food really fast to get that. And then obviously people want to have strawberries for Valentine's Day in February. That's the must. So obviously foods are shipped around the world all year round, and that has a huge impact on our environment, obviously. So it felt hypocrite to just think, oh, I'm gonna eat healthy food, but if that food involves shipping bananas across the world, it doesn't mean if I live in an environment that is polluted by the food I eat, how would I get healthier? And it's that cycle. So how can we make food as nutritious and healthy as possible, but also respect the environment at the same time? And for that we have a great reference that if you are listening you could look at. Is the Eat Foundation. They came up with the Eat Lancet, so it's basically a bunch of scientists that got together.
Like 75 scientists that got together to put together a report to see how we could feed all of the people that were going to be in 2050. And it's the first time that scientists have come together and that they have actually like sorted out a way of how we're going to fight malnutrition, obesity, environmental problems and everything, because that's also what's pretty messed up about the food system in the world right now, is that, well, we have places in the world where people are basically just obese and like like they're not eating
nutrition is in both ways.
Yeah.
Either you don't get enough food or either you get too much, and that's a complete opposite side of the chart basically, but it's an issue that we need to solve because it's increasing to triple the amount of obese people in the world since 1975. So it's just not getting it any better. But the Eat Lancet, then they have come up with something that is called a Planetary health diet. And that's also, we base a lot of our work and our recipes and everything on that. We did it before the actual Lancet came out, but then it was like good to have it now with science proof basically, and that is promoting more flexitarian diet, but also then really eating what's in season, what's around you locally and all of those things. But it doesn't, as in flexitarian means that you can have fish, you can have meat, you can have all of it, but it's just like in smaller amounts of what the general person eats today. And then it's what is good about this flexitarian diet in a way as well, is it that it's super inclusive, so it can be adapted. Since food is such an emotional and cultural thing as well, well, it can be adapted to each and every culture. Because, well, obviously that would mean for us Swiss, we're a lot of fondue and like Bündnerfleisch and those kind of things, where that's part of the culture. That means less of it. But Switzerland is so rich for everything else as well. So we're so lucky to have great vegetables and that kind of thing as well. So so the Eat Lancet is a really good way of kind of, if you want this to read the chart with the lines, it's a really good one.
And you just said it's extremely messed up. It's not just like something we could work on someday. It's like a huge problem, and it's something that we have to do daily. So if we all could do something, just some of your examples you just said some minutes ago, we probably could make a huge change already.
And then also about like not wasting food, because it's 1/3 of the food that is produced that is being thrown away, which is insane, because like on all aspects of the question that's wrong, because it's like unethical, as you always say, and it's just like basically when you throw away something, well, you throw away all the effort, all the resources, all like the labor and energy and everything that has gone into that. If it's an apple, which is pretty basic, but then like you throw away everything that has gone into that apple, which is pretty like sad. Disrespectful actually when you think of it like that. So it's really, in terms of it's not a way of like putting pressure on people, like being like, oh, all your choices matter. It's more like we wanted to put it forward in more like an empowering way, because it means that by what you are deciding to eat or what you're buying, you can actually have an impact to challenge the system, and that's pretty cool. Instead of saying it like, oh, being more overwhelmed because everything is so new or whatever, it's just like, go take action, instead of just like, progress is anyway always better than doing nothing. So even if it's just about, it doesn't mean that you have to change your diet completely, but if you can at least be like, okay, I'm going to reduce my meat intake to 2 times a week. If you're used to having it 5 times a week, that's already huge. So it's super like personal. It doesn't mean that like that you have to become a vegan like from one day to another, because it's also about like implementing life changes that are sustainable in the long way for yourself as well. Because if you're doing it for a week and then you're like, oh, this sucked, well, that's not super helpful as well. But if you zone into it and move, because I mean for us as well, like we've been like actively in this for, was it now 7 years or something like that? But it's a transition, and we still sometimes, like today, I forgot to take my water bottle with me. It's super warm outside, so you're going to buy a plastic bottle and you feel bad about it, but it's still like that in a way. And same with the food, like sometimes you end up having to throw things away because you've been away for 3 days and you forgot that you had things in the fridge. So it's not about being perfect. It's just about being conscious about the thing, like what you eat and how you handle the food.
And there are easy ways to just like not throw away that much food at home. If you can use your freezer, which is an amazing tool to not waste food. If you like happen to buy bread and then you think, oh, I'm never gonna finish that bread, just to put some slices in the fridge. Or if you freeze, if you have like berries, or particularly now you have like blueberries, raspberries, all the berries in season, so you just want to enjoy them in winter as well. So just like buy an extra one, put it in the freezer, and then in January when you have like a nice strawberry smoothie or whatever, you have some in the fridge. And actually freezer. And actually the good thing about the freezer is that vitamin C will be stuck in the fruit and will not go away, as if you were just like keeping your blueberries outside or in the fridge. So it keeps it fresh and nutritious as well, even if it stays for a few months in the freezer. So it's challenging, but also
but it's fun.
It's fun, yeah.
It's a lifestyle. No?
Yeah,
I think it gets a lifestyle when you, I feel like as more as you get into that topic, it's getting more fun as well, because you're creating something that you just think, okay, it's yummy, it's local, it's seasonal, it's maybe something that is working out really well with my stomach as well, so I'm not gonna be really hurtful afterwards. And I think this lifestyle is something people have to learn through people like you. So I think it's really important that you girls, be the activists and speak out, because I guess it brings a lot of self-confidence to stand there and talk about stuff where different generations have no clue about it. You know, there's still so many young kids or older people or in every age who still don't get the point of buying plastic or buying fruit in plastic or stuff like that. I just can give an example from my side. My boyfriend is a vegetable farmer, and I see daily how much stuff we throw away because it's not the way that our society wants it to be. Like it's too small, it's maybe not like it's maybe not the form that you want to see it, and I think it's the point that you say you have to get that relationship to that stuff. And I'm really happy that you girls actually bring it along in a really personal way and in a self-confident way that we all can see each other in a mirror, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That means a lot, because sometimes it's like through this whole process has been like many ups and downs, and we've been doubting ourselves a lot, and we both like basically we have been making each other ourselves sick by doing this. So it's like sometimes as well, like, oh, we're not really walking the talk here, being all eat this healthy food, and then you're stressed out because like there are so many things that you want to do and put in place. But it's now we feel like it starts to take, and then it's well received, and that really motivates us to kind of move forward. And now as well, like with the more moving to the agency side of things and doing more consulting, that also kind of feeds our fire more, because we feel like we have more impact. But then it's also, we've gone through these different phases where we did, because now like our Instagram account is pretty vacant because we are working on so many other things behind, but it's a lot of things are coming. But then sometimes but as soon as we go on posting again, like it's so much fun to have this direct connection with people, and to be like, yeah, we are cooking with you, and we are having...
Yeah, and you do it in a really fun way. You know, it's not that cooking class that you have to put like one spoon, and I feel like it's a natural and personal way. And that's what connects, and that's what really makes the change in the end of the day. Because if I get a book that tells me I'm supposed to eat this and this and this, and the world will be a bit better, it's a huge difference between that and two women that stand for their vision, and the vision that is not really clear for so many people. That's even harder. So I think that personal way is so special. So
yeah, thank you.
Great job.
It's really like when we started writing down the recipes, because we did not do that from the beginning. We were like a little bit of this, and then we're like, oh, now we have to write them down. We're like, but we never follow the recipes. And then as well, like when you follow most, like, not to hate or put any shade on other like food, like, but these like very nice food blogs or whatever, often like the recipes, to come to the ingredients list, you have to scroll for like 7 years and talking about his mother's cats, whatever, before coming to the thing. So we were like, yeah, but you just want it fast, and so it's more about actually making our lives easier as well, and how we approach food as well. And then like our friends, we have a lot of of guy friends who are like not necessarily like super into the whole like smoothie thing or whatever, and they're like, we just want to have ingredients that we can spell, and that we don't need to go and look for in special stores, whatever. So that's why it's straight to the point, and that's what we like as well. So it's super cool and that's why Instagram is, I mean, you know that as well, like it's such a great channel, because especially with the stories, is because you can really exchange, and you can do it quickly and show how it's done, instead of just giving a long list of how things are being done. So it's super fun to cook that way as well. It's way more fun to cook when we're together, but also like while doing the stories, because then we have to think a little bit about more how it's done.
And just that vision of what can I do with a potato, like there are like thousands of versions, right? But people don't have the space, maybe because they're so involved into their daily habits and life, that they don't have the space to think about that, and getting that inspiration, like I think that's really meaningful as well. And you both said before, or you talked about divorce.
Yes.
And like we're getting to an end, but I really need to know a bit of something about divorce. So do I spell it right? Okay.
It took us a long time to get that name. It was like, I think during the first kind of 6 months working on the project, it had like 5 different names. So it was like at one point it was just called Error 404 because we didn't find a name. So we were like, but then we have a girl who was working with us on this, who's still working with Nina. We just sat down, me and her, for one day, and she's really good with words and all this. So, and then we were like, yeah, we need something. It has to have like a connotation with food or whatever. It has to be like in French and English. And then it just came out, and then we were like, we found it, we got it.
You liked it from the very beginning?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, because you could understand it in French and in English, and it was with a challenge in cost. And anything that we do is like, which language are we going to speak? Because Tora here is from Sweden, so a lot of the crowd that we have on our Instagram account is also from Sweden, so Franglish is the official language. So Deborah was perfect, and yeah, Deborah was a continuum of what we're like an initiative from COS, because we really want to join forces with local authorities, but also with the restaurant, because restaurants have the opportunity to influence what is in our plate, and they can decide whether they want to have like fish coming from the Atlantic or fish coming from a local lake in the mountain or something like this. So it was mountain sea, and then we decided to create that forum where we can exchange with different experts in the field and then figure out solution. But we also wanted to have a sort of a case study or a study to the forum, so we can actually put in action something that was meaningful for the local people, for the restaurant, but also interesting for the local authorities. Like, okay, so we teamed up with two startups from Switzerland. One is Belong. They have the eco score and they help us with the suppliers aspect of it. And then the second one is Kitro. And they have this device that calculates the
scale
food
from
weight.
the future.
Yes.
That works with artificial intelligence to weigh and take pictures of the food that is thrown out.
So we've been measuring for 3 months last winters, and it came out that we wasted 9.2 tons of food that was avoidable, and this accounts for approximately 66,000
francs
of
avoidable waste.
Waste. So it was really intense. There's a lot to do with that.
We were supposed to measure for 6 months, but then COVID happened. So
it's postponed to next season, but it's great opportunity because we can see before and after. We have different workshops organized this summer as well with the restaurant to kind of work out the solution. We're like thinking of doing a beer maybe with dry bread or stuff like this. They're amazing solutions that we can come up with, and
it's been
really involved.
It's been really like it was pretty hard to put in place because we had to present something to our local authority in Verbier about a problem that they don't think exists, but we managed to get the support from them to be able to do this study with the restaurants, because otherwise it would be so costly for the restaurants themselves, and our main goal was to be able to kind of help them to transition towards more sustainable practices. But as restaurants, well, they don't have a lot of money to move around with, and they are like, profit is super, especially in the mountains where they just have a short season to do their whole whole year, and also they don't have a lot of time, so it couldn't kind of conflict in any way. It just had to be around in a way. So we managed to get support from the local commune to do the first kind of round of measuring, which was really great, because then they're just like paying a symbolic fee to be part of the movement of Devor, because we're acting as an association for the Devor thing. So that was really, it was been like the work to get the restaurants on board took a lot of time, but it was also there where we also got all the good insights on how it really works in the kitchen, what the problem is, how they can reduce and whatever, and all of that. And that's where we're moving towards more of doing more of that. But it's so as Maéva said, now we're doing more of the workshop and all those things, and that's super nice because it's a super creative process as well. And to also get them, because to make them understand that they are also kind of change leaders and change makers, because as Maéva said so well before as well, it's like they have the power to influence what we put in our plates. But then it's also a bit hard because the consumers want something, but then as well they have to take a certain position to show that we are taking a stand to trying to make our menu more sustainable or more kind of that. So it's so good. But what is good with the food waste is that even though it's at the end of kind of the whole food journey, it's a good way to kind of to image it, because you see the numbers, you see the amount and everything, and then you can walk back to the resources, to the handling and all of that. So it's a very visual tool to educate is the wrong word, but to kind of to make them sensitive to how much they throw away and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
And you're planning to, like, you're doing workshops in whole Switzerland about that topic now, or?
For now, no. It's just with the restaurants that have been taking part in the first measuring
first study. Yeah.
But yeah, it is for us. It's a little bit of like a pilot project for this, to see how it works. And now during this year we gained quite a lot of insight on what can be improved.
Yes.
And the goal is to be able to bring kind of the flag of Devor to other places. So
I love the style of your flag. I saw that one with the different colors and
yeah, that was really the idea of it behind. The inspiration came a bit from the pride flag, because it's like because we really wanted it to be a movement. So the designer who helped us with it, he was like, but I thought it was really cool, because then we can, it's cool as well, because then we can play with the different colors as well. And it was not, because normally what is being done in the same way, it's always a little bit too corporate for us, and we're not really corporate. That's why we're more food rebels. So then came the movement with it.
Nice. Maybe to come to an end, of course I would love to discuss like endless, because I think that topic is so interesting, and I hope that we maybe get people involved to think about it more deeply and talk. I think in our events we always, when we have when the event is going on for more than one day, we always have that discussion about food and how we waste and how we should go with the planet. So I feel like we're going in a good direction, but I'm really happy that we could talk about all of that, so we maybe can get more sensitive feeling for maybe the people who are listening right now. Maybe to come to an end, what heartbeat do you want to talk or share to get that end perfectly done? What's something you really feel like needs to be put out there?
Well, basically it's just to go for it. Whether if it's connected to food or in life in general, it's really about just trying, not trying to be doing it perfectly or whatever. It's just about okay, I'm gonna try this recipe, I'm gonna try and just doing it instead of
fuck ups are so nice. You can laugh about it so hard after. That's the best part.
And it took us a long time to come to that. Kind of, because we're in nature we're pretty perfectionist, both of us. But to be it's such a relief to see the fuck up as a blessing. Because then you're anyway, because we wouldn't end up there or there if you didn't mess up in the first place. So that would probably be the most thing, and that it's the same in the kitchen basically.
That's a nice final point. Go for fuck ups. Cool.
All right, so thanks a lot for your time, and I hope to see a lot more of you two.
Thank you so much for having us, and we promise there are a lot of things for coming this summer, so it's gonna be
We're excited about that.